Thank you, Mark. It's wonderful to be with all of you as always. And I want to begin with just offering a moment of gratitude for IJS for providing us this space to come together, to learn together, to sit together, and just to experience um, each other's presence in this container. Um, in, Incredibly grateful for this space. Thank you. So today I want to explore a little bit sitting in uncertainty. And it's not a comfy place for us to be, but it's a place we find ourselves quite frequently. And so our practice helps us prepare for those moments of finding ourselves in a situation in the world, in our day-to-day life, where we're faced with uncertainty or indecision, or a moment where we are not sure what to do, or that the external pieces of what's going on in the world around us, even though we might find our own personal mission to be one that is full of clarity, that the world around us may just create a place of uncertainty. And I think it's something that for those of us who are involved in meditation and mindfulness, if we walk through the world with awareness, it's something that we can be aware of very frequently, is that we're facing uncertainty. So we're going to provide you with a link to texts that I'm going to reference throughout our sit together at the very end, but as an offering to allow all of us to really be fully present as we sit, we're going to wait until the end to provide those links. So I'll just ask for your patience and recognize that perhaps if you've had a response to hearing that you don't have access to those texts right away and you're feeling a little bit of uncertainty, invitation to sit with that and feel like, what is that raising for you in the body right in this moment? And it's okay if there's a little bit of discomfort. That's what we're actually working with today. So the first piece that I want to bring to you comes from the Sfat Emet. And the Sfat Emet teaches that it is through Yirat Hashamayim, the awe of the Holy One, that we're able to come to an understanding of choice, making choices for good and avoiding what might lead us to a negative space. And Sfat Emet also teaches that only the wisdom that arises from Yirat Shamayim, this sense of awe, wonder at the greatness of God, will give us true purpose. And this is the wisdom that arises from the power of reverence. So that comes from Proverbs, that quote, "This is the wisdom that arises from the power of reverence." And when we're feeling that sense of discomfort, of unease, we can rest on connecting to a sense of awe of the greatness of holiness, however we might experience that in our lives. Many of us who are part of the sit are familiar and have had the pleasure of learning with Rabbi Sheila Weinberg. And she has taught that there's a practice for the moments when we feel uncertainty, when we're faced with difficult choices, and when we want to act with wisdom. She teaches first, stop, then take a breath, and then think. So, what she's offering here is a moment to connect with that sense of awe of the greatness of the world, rather than when we're presented with something that brings us discomfort, to react in an immediate, responsive way. So it's an invitation to settle down the reactivity that our monkey minds bring to the fore for us. So usually when we're presented with something that makes us encounter uncertainty or feeling like we're uncomfortable, we react really right away with a sense of repulsion and I don't like this, right? And so we're invited to say, well, it's not like or dislike, it's take a moment. Take a moment, stop, breathe, maybe even connect, feel what's happening in the body, perhaps even offer the self a chance to let that settle down, and only then do the thinking. And all of that happening before there's actually a response. So, with those teachings from our teachers, I'm going to invite us to a Tonglen practice today. And if you haven't done Tonglen practice before, that's okay. I'm going to share with you what it is, and then I'll guide us through that practice. So Tonglen practice, this is a description of Tonglen practice that comes from Pema Chodron. Tonglen practice is also known as taking and sending. Taking and sending. And this reverses our usual logic of avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure. So the connection today is that when we're faced with uncertainty, we usually want to avoid that. And we usually want to just go somewhere else that brings us to a more comfortable place. And that's an example of avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure. So in Tonglen practice, we're going to visualize taking in the pain of others. And for today, what I'm going to suggest that we do is, rather than focus on the pain of others, to focus on the uncertainty of others. We often focus on the uncertainty of ourselves. So we're going to focus on that uncertainty of others. And with each in-breath, breathing in, understanding that others walk in uncertainty just as we do. And with each exhale, we'll send out whatever might benefit whomever we are envisioning encountering uncertainty. So we'll send out whatever might benefit that person on the out breath. The hope is that through this process, eventually, we become liberated from patterns of selfishness, and we begin to feel love for both ourselves and for others. And we begin to take care of ourselves and others. And I feel that this is especially important as we encounter uncertainty in our own lives, to remember that when that uncertainty arises in the context of relationship, it can be helpful to do the stopping, taking a breath, inviting, I'm feeling uncertainty. Perhaps the person whom I'm engaged in relationship with at this moment is also feeling uncertainty, and inviting this practice in of breathing in that person's uncertainty, breathing out whatever might be helpful, useful to that person, and only then responding. I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable way to sit. You can allow the eyes to rest gently. Taking note of the physical self, noticing any discomfort in the body, just checking in there. No need to fix, just noticing what is. We'll take a few breaths here, just as we're doing a little checking in with the physical self. Perhaps taking a moment to move all the way from the tips of the toes to the crown of the head. And then taking just a few breaths to check in with the emotional state. Just prodding the heart a little bit, seeing what's there. Accessing that emotional state and seeing if there's any connection to what's going on emotionally and the physical state of the body. And again, just bringing inquisitiveness into this process. No need to fix, just noticing what is. And finally, bringing the attention to the breath. Just noticing the nature of the breath. Perhaps noticing the coolness of the air, whatever quality the air has as you breathe in through the nostrils. The moistness that's added to the air as it travels through your body and then escapes through the lips or the nose. You're invited to bring to mind a person that you're in relationship with with whom you've experienced moments of uncertainty. Perhaps when you experience that uncertainty, you may have been focused on your own experience. Just taking a moment to notice that the other also experiences uncertainty. And as we sit on the inhale, breathing in that uncertainty, that suffering that occurs with uncertainty. And on the out breath, sending out whatever will benefit them. Sending out compassion. Breathing in the pain and uncertainty of the other. Breathing out understanding. Breathing in that uncertainty and breathing out spaciousness. Whatever it is that you envision will be beneficial to the other. We're going to sit in silence for 2 minutes, focusing on the breath. come out of our sitting with a poem from Lao Tzu. It's called The Center of Your Being. Always we hope that someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one has the answer. No other place will be better. And it has already turned out. At the center of your being, you have the answers and you know what you want. There's no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from the window. Rather, abide at the center of your being. The more you leave it, the less you know. Search your heart and see that the way to do is to be. Thank you, everyone, for your practice today and your presence.
Thank you so much, Kerith. Friends, let's seal this beautiful practice with an opportunity for those in mourning, those observing your outside, if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, it's an opportunity to be present for those and to offer compassionate support for those who are in mourning. We're invited to put the name or names of anyone that they were remembering and honoring today in the chat, either now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Natalie for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. Natalie, if you can make it maybe a tiny bit bigger, that'd be great. And if you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit. And you can unmute at this time. Yid Gadal, Yid Kadash, Merabah, Dirach, Chayekon, Yomekon, Hayed, Chol Beit Yisrael, Agalah, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Leolam Lamei Amaya. Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yithadar, Yitalev, Yithalal, Shemei Dekutshach, Mechut, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, la'amiran ba'alma, Ru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, Chaim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Ru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'romav, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yoshei Tevel, Imru.
Amen. Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, hope you'll join us tomorrow at our usual time. Just a reminder that this week we are sitting tomorrow and Friday, next week on Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll be on a bit of a hiatus during Hanukkah from next Wednesday through the following Wednesday, which is New Year's Day. So next week we will be meeting live on Monday and Tuesday, and the following week we'll be meeting Thursday and Friday. That's January 2nd and 3rd, and then back to our regular 5-day-a-week schedule going forward after that. So we hope you'll join us tomorrow if you're leaving us now. If not, of course, as always, you're welcome to stay on for a conversation with our teacher today or to share reflections on your experience with today's beautiful practice. And also we'll put, thanks Natalie for putting in the chat links to Cantor Kerith's website, to her Instagram account, which, as I've mentioned in the past, Kerith posts very beautiful, short mindfulness practices, video teachings and practices on Instagram, which I encourage you to follow her there to be able to participate in those, and also teachings on Insight Timer and on YouTube. So many opportunities to practice with Kerith as well. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, preface it by writing question, all in caps, and I'll keep an eye out for that, try to work that in. Thanks so much, Kerith. It was always wonderful. And I thought that just to break down the different parts of today's practice, the first part was about, we're experiencing a lack of clarity about what to choose, the path forward, what to do in the moment, that the practice is pretty straightforward and simple, not so easy, but simple. Uh, and I really recommend the link to the poem, by the way, is with a lot of Kerith's teaching are in the source sheet. And thanks, Natalie, for putting the link in again to that. So it's all there. So including this passage from Rabbi Jonathan Slater's commentary on the Hasidic teaching, which basically lays out step by step. Okay, stop the forward motion.
Yep.
Stop going into the future. And I'll just tack on ruminating about the past, be in the present,
Mhm.
and notice what is true in this moment. And
Yes.
answers will be there. And that Lao Tzu poem, I experienced that as connect with this, just to put the two together, right? Is connect with the center of your being, because what you need to know in order to be able to make a wise choice is there.
Yes.
Got that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Anything? All right. So then the Tonglen is like, I thought, okay, that's Dayenu. That's enough. But which is great. But I really did appreciate connecting that with this Tonglen practice. I want to invite you to say a little bit more about that. People over the course of the last 4.5 years, whatever, I don't know how many times, but probably 10 times people have brought that practice here, maybe more even, especially during COVID. I today was the idea of like breathing in, taking in the pain of others and breathing out compassion and support for them. I really felt that today with our little art group. There
Mhm.
are people still here. We had like 190 or so, 200 people here today. And it was a very effective way of feeling connected, being aware of and connected to the group while being
Mm.
in my own individual practice. I don't know if other people, it would be interesting if people want to share in the chat. Um, um, if people want to share in the chat, if they're willing, if you're willing, whose pain and suffering. Also thought about the hostages too, was another. I thought, wow, what
Mm.
a powerful practice to do for the hostages. Or and anyone basically, and anyone who's, in pain and suffering right now. But like,
Yeah.
we do a little prayer for the hostages every day, thinking about that. Like that's a very powerful thing to do. I'm not sure there's a question at the end, but
Yeah.
it's like
I,
reflecting back.
it's
I got it.
it's interesting. I've brought Tonglen to this group before as well. And whenever I bring Tonglen to a sitting group, I'm a little nervous about it, quite frankly, because it's not it's not often what people are seeking. People are seeking a moment of solace, maybe a comfort, and this takes us to a place that can sometimes be quite difficult, right? Um, so I'm a little wary when I do it, but as I was thinking about, I've been studying this particular text this past week, and as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about my own encounters with other humans where conflict arose and that left me feeling uncertain. But rather than always engaging in the advice that was given from our teachers, it brings about this reactive response.
Right.
And so to me, there's this invitation in those moments to pause and notice that it's not just my uncertainty that exists in those moments, it's the uncertainty and pain of others. And if I can distance myself a little bit from my own suffering and open myself up to the suffering of those who I might not be relating with immediately.
Mhm.
That is an opportunity for some very deep practice and for really inviting compassion into the moment for those for whom that's not our first response. And this is a powerful practice because there are times in our lives when our response to ourselves, when our immediate response to ourselves is not one of compassion. And if we can cultivate this compassionate response to those who are triggering us, we can then fall back on that. If we really engage in this, we can fall back on that as a response to ourselves when our immediate response is not to be kind to ourselves, if that makes sense.
Does. I do want to address a question. This comes up all the time, but it's relevant to this practice. Lori's question about that. How do we get, Lori puts it, how do we get over the feeling that, but how do we address the question of being with the center rather than doing? In other words, like the way I'm understanding Lori's question is that we're avoiding action by stepping back and just being rather than doing with the center of our being. I mean, I think you have the answer right there, which is, I think that, this is a prior step to action, right?
That's right.
That,
Yeah, it doesn't mean don't act.
right.
It means don't act without allowing, and it's not don't, it's perhaps try. Try this as an alternative way of walking in the world and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an invitation, and it's not if you live in a different way and you respond in a different way, it's wrong or bad. It's human, right?
Right.
This is counterintuitive. It's a practice
Mm-hmm.
and can lead us hopefully to wise action. And I think there was another question from Ruth Feldman. She says, so cultivating compassion for others helps us understand ourselves better. Is it a healing practice for ourselves also? Yes. And Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, that we are. And so I think what this practice does is raises our awareness of that reality, that even and maybe especially those who we have an immediate response of, ugh, not that, or this is causing me discomfort. I don't like this interaction.
Right.
Those people, we truly need to understand that we are with those people. This is not an easy practice, which is why, I hesitate sometimes to bring it.
Yeah, so it's true, it's not. So I take that as it's a way of recognizing the kind of interconnectedness and,
Yes.
the really basically, and now I can't keep track, but I think yesterday's practice, oh my God, I can barely remember who's, do you does anybody remember who was leading yesterday? And in a recent sit, might have been yesterday, about the underlying oneness, about that preceded creation that underlies the multiplicity of creation. It's another way of saying, I think, what you're saying, which is quite beautiful. And it is a challenging, and for some people, maybe a triggering
Yes.
one. So maybe you want to say a little bit about for those for whom this might be dysregulating, right? What to do in that.
Yeah. So first of all, if there's any practice that you find yourself trying and it becomes the discomfort becomes too much, it's time to move away from that practice. That being said, we experience discomfort in our lives. And so if we're only to focus on practices that bring us comfort, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And there's an opportunity in this practice to help ourselves, if we can touch on this maybe just a little bit, to when we find ourselves in those moments of discomfort, to call on this kind of a practice. Because if we're only practicing in comfort, we are giving ourselves a very one path to access how our practice moves into our daily rhythms of life. If we allow ourselves to this practice in whatever way it may be, and maybe finding that sweet spot of where it's enough discomfort to allow ourselves to feel that trigger where we can still have a little bit of distance from it, but it doesn't completely overwhelm self, then we can practice with this discomfort, that no matter who we are or what our life circumstances are, we will encounter discomfort and uncertainty in our lives. And I feel that mindfulness and meditation is an opportunity to carry these practices over into our daily lives so that they can help us move more skillfully toward ourselves and others through the world. And so that's the purpose of doing something like this, where yes, it does bring discomfort. Yes, it is triggering. And this is practice for life, which also contains those elements.
Amen. Tell you what, why don't we end with that poem, that Lao Tzu poem again? And I have the text up right now, so maybe I'll just share the screen since I have it right here. Kerith, if you don't mind taking us out with that would be great. Hold
My
on.
pleasure.
Let me pull it up. And there we go. And
Thank you.
okay, thanks.
The center of your being. Always we hope that someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one else has the answer. No other place will be better. And it has already turned out. At the center of your being, you have the answers and you know what you want. There is no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from the window. Rather abide at the center of your being. For the more you leave it, the less you know. Search your heart and see. The way to do is to be.
Thanks so much, Kerith, as always.
Thank you.
And hope if you're leaving us, well, we're ending now. Hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be led in practice by Rabbi Robin Damsky tomorrow. And on Friday, we'll send it to Shabbat with Rabbi Susan Leiter, everyone. So hope to see you tomorrow or Friday. And many thanks again to Natalie, to you, Kerith, and also to Pam Tarlow for sponsoring our practice today in memory of her father on the occasion of his 35th yard site. Thank you so much, Pam. Zichrono Libracha. May his memory be a blessing always. Blessings to everyone, and we hope to see you soon.